you feel pain like no other pain. And you know that in your life, it's going to be very difficult to come across something that's going to be even worse pain than that. But it also brings you so close to all those other people out there who have been bereaved.
British media is abuzz with rumors emerging from a private ceremony at St. Mary's Church in Norfolk, where Prince William experienced a rare, deeply emotional moment that reportedly caught even his royal security team off guard. Witnesses present at the church that morning say the future king appeared to abandon all usual protocol the instant he noticed a young girl sitting alone in the front pew. According to those who were there, the mysterious girl said just a few brief words to William, words powerful enough to visibly transform his normally composed expression. Moments later, he surprised everyone by handing the child a personal item that has never been seen in public before, right there inside the historic church. Some attendees described the scene as profoundly moving, with several claiming the prince had to turn away to hide his emotions. What has truly ignited public speculation is the reported swift intervention by Kensington Palace to contain the story. Questions are now swirling. Who is this young girl who could unsettle Prince William so deeply? And what is the secret behind the small object he gave her that has left the entire royal family unusually silent? The spring morning in Norfolk carried the characteristic crisp chill of the English countryside. Yet the atmosphere inside St. Mary's Church was entirely different. For Prince William, who had just endured a long stretch of intense royal duties and relentless media pressure following the major upheavals in his family, earlier that year, this quiet space was a rare sanctuary where he could regain his inner balance. The heir to the British throne constantly bore the weight of heavy national responsibilities and the harsh scrutiny of the public. Beneath the strong, composed exterior of a future king, he was still a man carrying an unhealed wound from the tragic accident that had taken his mother, Princess Diana's life in 1997 when he was only a 15-year-old boy. He sat in a secluded corner at the back, trying to blend in with the congregation, seeking a moment of peace as an ordinary man rather than a symbol of the monarchy. As the church bells rang to signal the start of the service, William's gaze was involuntarily drawn to a small figure in the front pew. It was a little girl, about 5 years old, wearing a pale blue knitted coat with slightly frayed hems. Amid the solemn hall filled with adults bowing their heads in prayer, the sight of a child sitting alone was impossible to ignore. What truly astonished William and kept him transfixed, however, was the girl's strikingly calm demeanor. She showed no fear, no restlessness, and there was no adult accompanying her to comfort or watch over her. The girl's name was Rosie, the daughter of a British soldier who had been killed in the line of duty during an international mission the previous year. Despite her small, innocent appearance with chubby cheeks, Rosie possessed a maturity and strength beyond her years, a resilient inner world forged by the immense pain of her family's loss. The prince's curiosity began to rise, overshadowing his earlier troubled thoughts. Observing more closely, he noticed Rosie was deeply absorbed in a small, worn book in her hands. Her plump little fingers turned the pages with care and reverence. Occasionally, she would look up with her clear eyes at the vibrant stained glass windows above the altar, her gaze sparkling with anticipation, as if searching for a sign, something truly special hidden within those sacred images. The independent and determined actions of this 5-year-old in such a solemn setting created a powerful contrast, stirring the protective instincts and deep fascination within the prince, who was accustomed to the strict protocols of palace life. Throughout the service, William found it impossible to focus on the vicar's sermon. His eyes kept drifting back to the front pew, following Rosie's every small movement. The fact that she was there alone raised a flood of questions in his mind about her safety and how a child could sit so composed and solitary in this place. When the final notes of the closing hymn faded and the congregation began to slowly gather their belongings to leave, William did not hesitate any longer. He stood up, adjusted his simple coat, and walked gently toward the front pew. As the distance closed, he could see more clearly the delicate yet faintly sorrowful face of the little girl. William lowered his tall frame by crouching slightly, offering a warm, reassuring smile, so as not to startle her, then spoke in a low, gentle voice. In response to the stranger's approach, Rosie showed no shyness. She looked up at him, her large, round eyes, reflecting the light from the tall windows, radiating an unusual resolve. When William asked why she was sitting there alone, Rosie hugged the small book tightly to her chest, pressed her lips together for a moment, then replied in a clear voice that carried a heartbreaking emotional weight. She said she had walked to the church by herself because she wanted to find a truly quiet place to talk to God about Daddy. That innocent yet profoundly sudden answer struck William like a hammer blow, leaving him completely speechless. All the usual diplomatic words of comfort or royal pleasantries vanished in an instant, replaced by a wave of overwhelming emotion that tightened his chest. Looking into the steadfast eyes of the 5-year-old girl, William felt a powerful surge of feeling, stirring the deepest memories within him, marking the beginning of a deeply moving connection at the ancient St. Mary's Church. The sacred space of the church after the service felt even more vast and profoundly still, enveloping two people from entirely different generations and worlds who had unknowingly connected on the same frequency of grief. Standing before the small child, Prince William felt every barrier of his royal status completely crumble. He listened attentively as Rosie's innocent words slowly seeped into his mind, unfolding the story of her late father. The little girl told him that her father was a brave soldier who had fallen on a distant battlefield the previous year and was now in a faraway place called heaven. The only reason this 5-year-old had walked all the way to the church alone was to find a space close enough to the sky where she believed her whispered words about everyday life, her school grades, or the beautiful maple leaf she had picked up could drift through the clouds and reach her beloved father's ears. Rosie's resilience and calm acceptance of loss did not ease the ache in William's heart. Instead, it felt like a powerful whirlpool twisting tightly around it. His chest constricted as the painful memories he had tried to bury beneath his royal facade for nearly 30 years suddenly stirred awake. The little girl's clear, innocent recounting acted like a mirror, reflecting his own image from the autumn of 1997. Back then, the 15-year-old William had stood alone at his mother, Princess Diana's funeral, watched by millions of eyes, yet feeling more isolated than ever. He remembered the helplessness, the anger toward fate, and the long, sleepless nights staring at the palace ceiling, wondering why his gentle mother had disappeared forever. The pain of losing a parent at such a young age was a scar that had never truly healed. It had only lain dormant, and now it was bleeding again in the face of this strange resonance with the child before him. The emotional conflict within William reached its peak when Rosie looked up at him with her clear, hopeful eyes and asked a question that gripped his heart. She wondered whether in that distant heaven, her father could truly hear everything she said, and whether he was still watching over her from the stars, just as her mother often told her to comfort her at bedtime. The child's gaze, filled with hope, mixed with a faint trace of doubt, pierced through every layer of armor surrounding the prince's soul like an arrow. William stood motionless, his hands unconsciously clenching inside his coat pockets. He realized this was not just Rosie's question. It was the very same one he had asked himself throughout his youth. He had once desperately longed for a sign, a gentle touch from the void to prove that his late mother was still walking beside him through every milestone in life, from growing up and getting married to facing the storms within the royal family. Now facing this small, fragile soul standing on the threshold of doubt, William understood that he could not respond with empty, polite words. He looked deeply into Rosie's eyes, feeling the full weight of responsibility As someone who had walked this path before, someone who bore a similar wound, and prepared to offer the most sincere comfort from the bottom of his heart. A cold wind from outside gently slipped through the cracks of the church door, causing the streaks of light on the stone floor to shimmer. Yet the atmosphere between Prince William and little Rosie seemed to have frozen in place. Standing before the child's hopeful question, William felt a powerful urge rising from deep within his heart. He knew he had to do something, a tangible act, to warm and support the fragile, yet incredibly resilient faith within her. His hand, which had been clenched inside his coat pocket to contain the surging emotions, brushed against a small, smooth metal object tucked deep in the corner. It was an old silver coin, intricately engraved on one side, with the image of St. George riding a horse and slaying a dragon, the classic symbol of courage, protection, and triumph over darkness. The moment his fingers closed around the sharp edges of the coin, an intense internal conflict unfolded in the prince's mind. This was no mere piece of metal. It was a protective talisman, a constant companion he had carried with him for many years through every journey, every major event, and every moment facing royal adversity. The coin served as a spiritual anchor, reminding him of his inner strength and duty to remain steadfast against life's storms. Parting with it made him feel as though he were severing a piece of his own protected memories. A flicker of hesitation passed through William's eyes. He gently ran his fingers over the raised patterns on the coin's surface, weighing its profound spiritual value to himself. However, when he looked down at Rosie's small figure, at her hands clutching the old book tightly, and her eyes gazing up in anticipation of an answer, every trace of selfishness or reluctance in William's heart vanished. He understood that right now, this 5-year-old girl needed that symbol of courage far more than he did. She was facing a dragon far too large called loss, and she needed a talisman to keep moving forward without being consumed by loneliness. With a decisive yet incredibly gentle gesture, William slowly withdrew his hand from his pocket. He knelt on one knee on the cold stone floor to bring himself to eye level with Rosie, completely erasing the distance between a prince and an ordinary child. He opened his palm, revealing the silver coin gleaming under the morning light, streaming through the stained glass windows. Looking straight into Rosie's eyes, William gently extended his hand forward. The action spoke more powerfully than any words that her heroic father was still here, protecting her through the miracles around them. Rosie stared intently at the stranger's open palm. When she realized his intention, her eyes widened in astonishment. She hesitated for a brief moment before reaching out with her small, chubby fingers and carefully taking the silver coin from William's hand. The instant her fingers closed around the treasure, a magical change appeared on the child's face. The seriousness and heavy sadness that had weighed on the 5-year-old since the beginning of the service seemed to be washed away. The corners of Rosie's mouth gradually curved upward, and for the first time since their conversation, began a bright, pure smile like morning sunlight bloomed across her face. That smile not only lit up the dim corner of the church, but also soothed the tightness in William's chest, proving that his decision to give away the precious object was entirely right. Once the silver coin rested securely in Rosie's small palm, the heavy atmosphere surrounding the two of them seemed to dissolve completely, giving way to an invisible bond filled with warmth. With that small treasure, the last defenses in the 5-year-old's heart appeared to have been lifted. Rosie began to open up more eagerly, sharing with the prince her beautiful memories of her late father. Through her innocent gestures and expressions, she recreated those sunny Sunday afternoons in the park, where her father would lift her high onto his broad shoulders, her laughter ringing out across the sky. She recalled the evenings before bedtime when their little room would fill with his deep, warm voice, sometimes singing silly made-up songs just to make her smile. Watching the changing expressions on Rosie's face, Prince William could not help but marvel at the purity and vibrant energy radiating from the child. Yet beneath her enthusiastic stories and sparkling eyes, the intuition of a father of three and someone who had endured similar pain helped William sense a heartbreaking truth. He noticed how Rosie would occasionally glance toward the church door, or how her small hands would unconsciously grip the frayed hem of her knitted coat whenever she mentioned the word mom. The prince realized that the little girl was trying her hardest to appear strong and optimistic. This 5-year-old, with her innate sensitivity, understood that her father's absence had left an unfilled void in her mother's life, and she did not want her own sadness to make her widowed mother cry anymore. Rosie's almost extreme resilience created a powerful emotional conflict within William. He felt both admiration and a suffocating ache of sorrow. The child's unconditional optimism was not because she failed to understand death, but because she chose to hold on to the most beautiful moments as a source of strength for those still living. It was this mature, compassionate side of Rosie that touched the darkest corners and lingering wounds William had long tried to cover with royal busyness and duty. Sitting on the stone floor of the church, watching the small figure lost in happy memories, William suddenly felt a new vitality quietly seeping into his soul. The heavy pressures from the media crisis and the exhaustion of invisible battles outside suddenly felt lighter. This chance encounter was not simply him offering comfort to a young subject. On the contrary, it was Rosie's purity and courage that had become an invaluable balm for his spirit. William realized that those who had passed away never truly left us. They lived on in the most beautiful memories we chose to cherish. A deep part of the Prince of Wales's long-buried pain after all these years had found a miraculous healing. Right there in the front pew of the ancient St. Mary's Church. The peace inside St. Mary's Church could not last forever against the relentless pace of the outside world. Just a few hours after the service ended, whispered accounts from some of the congregation who had been present that morning began to leak out. The story of a noble prince kneeling on the cold stone floor, gently sharing in the grief of a fatherless little girl, quickly spread far beyond the borders of Norfolk. The power of modern media and social platforms turned that private moment into an explosive wave of information across Britain. Emotion-filled posts and online articles appeared in rapid succession, describing every detail of Prince William's kind gestures and transforming the chance encounter into the center of public attention. At Kensington Palace, the atmosphere immediately grew tense. Royal communications advisors were on edge over the dizzying speed at which the story was spreading. A quiet internal conflict unfolded within the palace walls over how to handle the information crisis. Officials were deeply concerned that excessive attention from photographers and extreme public opinion would unintentionally shatter the already fragile, peaceful life of Rosie and her mother. Public scrutiny was like a double-edged sword. It could offer warmth, but could also burn away the privacy of a widowed soldier's family. When Prince William learned of the situation, he expressed his firm determination to protect the child. He did not want an act that had come from his heart to be turned into a cheap publicity campaign. However, an unexpected development occurred completely beyond the control and predictions of the palace's communications team. There was no negative harassment. Instead, a massive wave of empathy began to form. Hundreds, then thousands of letters from every corner of the country, from impoverished industrial towns in the north to the bustling streets of London, were sent to the mailbox of St. Mary's Church. Envelopes of every color handwriting, ranging from children's scribbles to the shaky script of the elderly all carried the same message sharing. People wrote about fathers and husbands who had fallen in uniform, about the loneliness of children growing up in the shadow of loss. The appearance of Rosie and the St. George silver coin had become a symbol, a powerful catalyst that awakened a shared sense of comfort for an entire community carrying hidden emotional wounds. In the face of this profoundly humane response, the royal family's concerns gradually turned into deep emotion. The people of this misty nation no longer saw in William only the image of a future leader. They saw a man of flesh and blood, a son who had once endured the pain of losing his mother, and knew how to use his own scars to heal others. The prince's genuine and unpretentious compassion had touched the hearts of millions, turning what seemed like a small story in a rural church corner into a warm light that connected every like-minded soul across the United Kingdom in the spring days of 2026. A few weeks passed, and the intense heat of the media storm began to subside, returning the region of Norfolk to its usual tranquility. On a late afternoon, when the rays of the setting sun cast a deep golden-orange hue over the stone walls of St. Mary's Church, Prince William returned to this place once more. This time, he no longer carried the heavy, evasive mood of his first visit. His steps were light and steady as he walked through the familiar corridor. At that same front pew, where a miraculous connection had begun, William saw two figures sitting side by side. Beside little Rosie was a young woman dressed in simple yet dignified black attire, Rosie's mother. William's appearance did not surprise them. It felt as though an invisible bond of empathy had already arranged this meeting. Upon seeing the prince, Rosie immediately broke into a wide smile, one that no longer carried the sadness of those early days. Her first action was to open her small coat pocket carefully, using two fingers to gently pull out the silver coin engraved with St. George slaying the dragon. She pressed the coin into her palm and held it up high, as if showing him a priceless treasure. The metal caught the last light of the day and sparkled, a clear sign that the child had never let go of the faith and courage he had given her. Gazing at Rosie and her mother, William experienced a gentle yet profound internal struggle. He looked into the mother's deep, weary but resilient eyes, then at the radiant face of the child. The prince understood a harsh truth, the pain of losing the person you love most. A husband, a father, or a mother would never completely disappear from this life. It was like a scar embedded in the soul, one that would ache again when the seasonal winds changed or when faced with voids no one could fill. Yet through Rosie's resilience and the bond they had formed over the past few weeks, he also recognized another truth, that pain could be soothed, embraced, and transformed into strength through pure love and the careful preservation of beautiful memories. The three of them sat together in silence inside the church. No words were needed yet. The flow of understanding was more powerful than ever. Rosie's mother gently placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, her eyes directed toward William, brimming with profound gratitude. She did not know what words to use to thank this noble man who had used the highest sincerity to rescue her daughter's wavering faith. Meanwhile, Rosie tilted her head slightly, pressing the silver coin against her left chest, where her heart beat with the lively rhythm of life. Her eyes, now looking up at the stained glass windows, no longer held a hopeless search, but carried an unwavering, absolute belief that her heroic father in distant heaven was always watching over them, protecting them, and feeling proud of mother and daughter with every step they took. As darkness fully descended, draping a mysterious velvet curtain over St. Mary's Church, William slowly stood up and walked outside. Standing on the church steps, he breathed deeply, the crisp yet fresh Norfolk night air. The Prince of Wales felt a peace and freedom he had never experienced before. All the pressures of royalty and the pains of the past seemed to have been washed away. As he stepped into the car to return to his busy life beyond, he smiled, realizing that sometimes the greatest healing does not come from elaborate remedies or grand royal ceremonies, but from the simplest, most sincere encounters between souls that truly understand and share with one another. After finishing the story, what do you think Prince William's act of giving away the silver coin meant for his own process of healing emotional wounds? And what are your thoughts on little Rosie's maturity beyond her years? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.